Hello, 2025. Welcome to my top 10 movies of 2024. This video was kind of difficult to put together. This list was kind of difficult to put together because I didn't see a whole lot of movies. I saw like around 30 to 35 movies this past year, and that's mostly because I don't really go to the movie theater that much anymore. I much rather stay home, wait for it to come on streaming, and usually it has to be a movie that I'm really looking forward to. And I try to avoid watching crap like The Crow or Craven. If I know the movie's going to be bad, I don't go spend my money. That's just ludicrous. So my list is kind of small. You know, it isn't like 5-6 years ago where I was seeing 150 plus movies a year. Now I really have to be wanting to see the movie in order to go to the theater to see it. And I try to catch stuff when it comes out on streaming, but sometimes when it comes on streaming, I completely forget it's on streaming and I just miss it altogether. So with that said, this list is going to be kind of weird. I jotted down every movie that I seen in 2024, and then I started narrowing it down to my favorite movies of 2024 in the top 10 list. But by the end of this, if there's some movies that you think I need to check out, feel free, leave a comment in the comment section. Be like, Rob, these are some great movies. You have to see these movies, and then just kind of like write the movies, because if it's not in my top 10, then chances are I probably didn't see it. But there's also some movies I know you guys are gonna love that are not in my top 10. So there's just certain movies that I just didn't see, don't want to see, but there's also movies that I did see that's not going to make my top 10. But with that said, let's get into some honorable mentions. I have 3 honorable mentions here. The first movie in my honorable mentions is The Fall Guy with Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling. It was an okay movie. It was a fun, laughable movie. I laughed at a bunch of the jokes. Didn't quite make my top 10, but I think it's at least worth mentioning if you haven't seen it to go check it out. The second honorable mention is Damsel. It was a Netflix exclusive with Millie Bobby Brown. It was like a fairy tale type movie. It was like this weird, I don't want to spoil it, because if I spoil it, you're like, oh my god, because the first like 30 minutes is very important. Let's just say she ends up in a cave. She has to end up fighting a dragon and escape the cave. If you ever seen the movie Ready or Not, it's very similar to that, but with a dragon and cave. But Damsel was a really, really fun movie to watch, and I highly recommend that. And my last honorable mention is Roadhouse, the Amazon Prime movie. I don't understand why this wasn't in theaters. I would have paid to go see this in theaters, but it was an Amazon Prime exclusive. Jake Gyllenhaal, they rebooted. It was like, yeah, they rebooted because it wasn't like a one-for-one remake. It was a reboot of Roadhouse, the Patrick Swayze movie. I enjoyed it. I think Conor McGregor was a little over the top. That's where the movie started slipping a little bit. Like, I was down for the whole movie, but then when Conor McGregor came in, he was just over the top goofy, where the movie just kind of came to be like a comedy, really. But Roadhouse, I thought, was honorable mention. These are my 3 honorable mentions. If you haven't seen them, I definitely say check out The Fall Guy, check out Damsel 100%, and then Roadhouse, because I think those are worth mentioning. So with my honorable mentions out of the way, let's jump into my top 10 of 2024, starting with number 10, which is Lisa Frankenstein. I just seen this movie about 3 weeks ago. I was having a hard time sleeping, and I just kept tossing and turning. So I slapped on some headphones so I wouldn't wake my wife, put on, I believe it was Amazon Prime, because it's on streaming now, and I watched Lisa Frankenstein. And if you are someone who was born in the 70s, raised in the 80s, I was born in 84, so this is really a callback to those 80s movies. If you like weird science, it's like that. It's a very dark comedy where some of the stuff is like over the top, but you have this character, Lisa Frankenstein, who is basically like an outcast. She has a stepsister that's like perfect and all that stuff, and she creates a boyfriend. I don't even know if she wanted him as a boyfriend at the time, but this Frankenstein kid comes back to life, and she's basically what the title says, Lisa Frankenstein. She Frankensteins them back together, and it's a very, very dark comedy. I got a lot of 80s vibes, like weird science and all that stuff. If you are a fan of 80s movies, it's worth watching. It's not a movie for everybody, but if you like those like quirky type 80s movies, I mean, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a good late night watch for me. Coming in at number 9 is A Quiet Place Day One. Not my favorite out of the Quiet Place Place films, but I did think it was a standout for the year. It was a good movie. Like, the fact that that cat didn't say anything through the entire movie shocked me, especially at one point I had 6 cats and they were never quiet. But yeah, the fact that that cat stayed quiet, especially when they were doing the whole thing underwater stuff, there's no way. Every time I tried to give my cat a bath, it was awful. It did not work out very well. But Quiet Place day one, I thought it was good. Not the best out of the series. Came in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is Kryon. Just seen this movie yesterday, so the fact that it made in the top 10 just kind of tells you how 2024 was. But Kryon, Netflix exclusive, Taron Egerton. Yeah, it was a pretty cool movie. If you like Die Hard 2, that's what it like. It wasn't the same plot as Die Hard 2 at all, but it gave me Die Hard 2 vibes because it was in the airport. It was around Christmas time. It was basically, you know, Taron Egerton is like the security cop. He's like the check-in cop or whatever, and he's trying to stop this terrorist thing. And if I say too much, it's going to spoil the movie, so I don't want to do that. But yeah, it's a pretty decent movie. I was hooked. Like, the first 30 minutes was touch and go. I'm like, man, I hope this whole movie ain't gonna be like this. But then it really kind of takes a turn, and the movie really ramps up. And I was kind of like at the edge of my couch, going, "Oh, this is pretty cool. I can't wait to see how they get out of this situation." And I thought it was a very well done movie. Again, why didn't this come out in theaters? Why didn't this come out in theaters? Kryon, if you haven't checked it out, it's definitely in the top 10 on my list, and it's in the top 10 trending right now on Netflix, so I definitely go check that out. Coming in number 7 is Monkey Man. I really enjoyed this movie. A lot of people go into it thinking it's going to be like John Wick. It's not John Wick, but it was a pretty fun movie. Not a whole lot to say about it other than it's a good revenge / movie with a lot of really awesome fight scenes. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a really solid movie that I highly recommend. Coming in at number 6, Dune Part 2. This was my number 1 movie for most of the year, but then as I was seeing other movies, it just started going like further down my list. I enjoyed Dune Part 2. I enjoyed Dune Part 2 more than Dune Part 1. However, it's just nothing about it was really super memorable to me. Like, when you look at my top 5, I can point out 1 or 2 things that I'm like, oh, that stuck with me. That was memorable. Whereas Dune Part 2, it was like, oh, it was good. It was a solid film. You know, I love the director. You know, the director, Denis Villeneuve, like, he knocks everything out of the park. But at the end of the day, when I'm starting to like go down my list, it just was the least memorable. Still a solid film, and maybe I gotta go back and rewatch it. But the problem is when you have a film that long, the rewatch, you know, value of it, like, I don't know, man, what's the rewatchability of it? You know, do I really want to go back and watch like almost a 3-hour movie just to see where it goes on my top 10 list? I don't have that type of time, guys. But yeah, solid movie. That's why it comes in at number 6. Now we're gonna round off my top 5. Coming in at number 5. Deadpool and Wolverine. A lot of people might have this further up on our list, much like Dune 2. But it was solid. I liked it. The story plot didn't make a whole lot of sense. We really went and saw this movie for the team up of Deadpool and Wolverine, seeing Hugh Jackman come back, seeing Ryan Reynolds make fun of all the stupid stuff that Disney and Marvel has been doing. That's why we went to see the movie. We didn't see the movie because of the great layered, complex story. We saw it because we wanted to see jokes in the team up, and it was great for that aspect. And the actual soundtrack was phenomenal too, so that's why it came in at number 5. Might be higher on your list though. Leave your comments in the comment box below. Coming in at number 4, Twisters. Had a real fun time with Twisters, man. I think Twisters is better than Twister. You know, it's a sequel, but it's not a sequel because there's references into the first movie, but none of the characters are related to none of the characters in the first movie. It stands alone. You don't have to know anything other than them using the Dorothy name for their project thing. It has nothing to do with the original Twister, which I like and I can get behind because, like, hey, cool. It has the spirit of Twister doing its own thing. All the characters are phenomenal. Just a fun action. This is what I want, more movies like this, right? Movies that I talk like fun movies that doesn't have any messaging, doesn't have like a message behind it. It's just a good, clean action movie with fun set pieces and characters that I like. That's all I want, man. I want to go to the movie and just turn my brain off and watch a fun movie. I don't need all these things thrown at me, man. Twisters is really good, man. Really good. Coming in at number 3, Planet of the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Sorry, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Really good movie. Slow to start with, but I'm a massive fan of these movies. Going back to the original, like just a big fan of the Planet of the Apes franchise. Like it was a little slow in the beginning, but it really picked up toward the end. I don't think I liked it as much as a lot of other people because they were raving about it. I just felt like the beginning was a little slow. But like I said, I've been following this franchise since the first movie came out in the 60s. Like I currently go back like every couple years and just rewatch everything. And I just love the Planet of the Apes franchise. This movie was a solid entry. I want to see where it goes. The ending is really what got me and put it so high on my list because I want to see where it goes with that ending. I'm like, oh my God, where's this gonna go? So yeah, Kingdom of Planet of the Apes, number 3 on my list. Coming in number 2, My Old Ass, starring Aubrey Plaza. This was a phenomenal movie. I was debating if this was going to be my number 1 movie for a while. I watched this movie about a month ago. It was a recommendation from my friends I do Storm Nation with, and it has Aubrey Plaza, and basically it's a coming-of-age comedy, and she sees a vision of her future self, and some hijinks happens, and it's a coming-of-age story. If you guys like those coming-of-age stories, it's one of those things, and it's a very special movie, and it's funny. It's great. Aubrey Plaza is great. And then something happens in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the movie that just knocks the effing wind right out of you. Like, I started crying, and it got me. I'm sitting on the couch with my wife, and I'm trying not to cry, and I got tears coming down my eyes, and it just hits you. And I can't say too much because if I say something, it's gonna spoil the ending. But it hit me on so many different ways, and the movie is actually brilliant in a couple of different ways. One thing I will say is not a spoiler on the ending. There's some moments I like to say woke moments where there's woke characters, and at the first it started bothering me. But because I'm like, man, they just throwing this in here just to throw this in here. But by the end, they flip it on its head. And there's a reason why it's there. And it's part of the message of the movie that all this stuff with, a cis male, cis female, bi, gay, all they flip it on its head, and like none of that matters. It's whatever matters to you. So the wokeness part was like, oh man, really? Come on. But then they flip it. So if you start watching, you see it, just stick with it because there's a reason why it's there. And then something happens at the end, and it's a gut punch. Like it floored me. I was bawling my eyes out on the couch. And this movie, like I was gonna do a review, but I was afraid I was gonna cry in the review. But this movie was so close to being my number 1 movie. It's like out of all the movies on my top 10 list, if I can only recommend one movie that you need to watch, it would be My Old Ass. Even though it's not my number 1 movie, because my number 1 movie is so good, it had to be my number 1 movie because it shocked me. My Old Ass is the number 1 movie I would recommend out of this whole list. It's on Amazon Prime right now. Just go ahead, watch it. It's phenomenal. Like, it just blew me away. And with that said, with all the praising out of the way, let's get to my number 1 movie, which is Alien Romulus. This movie was just awesome. It was awesome. It didn't gut punch me like My Old Ass, and it wasn't but the thing is, the reason why it's my number 1 movie, because much like Twisters, where it was just a throwback, Alien Romulus was just a throwback. It felt like a throwback to the classic Alien movies. We're going back to horror. We're going back to a simple cast. The cast was phenomenal. How that actress isn't playing Ellie in the upcoming Last of Us series, and how they completely miscast Ellie in the Last of Us series, but that's a rant for another day. But it should have been this chick. But the cast was great. The one black actor was phenomenal. He was my favorite part of the movie. The way that dude just switches on a dime to playing a serious character, playing a creepy, scarier character, playing this AI robot. Like, well, I think he's like an android, but playing that, like the way he was able to switch back and forth, it was like watching James McAvoy in Split. It was just like, man, he's creepy as hell. I like him. He's creepy. I like him. He's like switching back and forth. Like, he's just watched the movie for that guy alone. That guy is like, wow. But man, it was just a really, really good movie. It was simple. It was back to basic, much like Prey was. Alien Romulus is the Prey for the Alien franchise. I'm so glad that Disney decided, hey, we're going to make these movies and we're going to go back to basics. Terminator, please do this. Do this. Stop all that stupid nonsense with time travel and 5 John Connors and John Connor's the Terminator. John Connor is dead. We're recasting Sarah Connor. We're bringing back Sarah. Stop all that nonsense. Just do something basic. Go back to your horror roots with Terminator. That's all you need. You got The Rock, right? The Rock could be the new Terminator. Don't reboot it. Just do something different with it. It doesn't make any. It doesn't matter what I think. But Alien Romulus, phenomenal movie. Like, I left the theater going, holy crap, that was way better than I thought. Like, I was super looking forward to it, and I was like, wow, really, really good callback. Like, this was a good callback to like the 70s and 80s this year. We had Alien Romulus, we had Planet of the Apes, we had Ghostbusters that didn't make my top 10. It wasn't really that good of a movie. That was like one of my letdowns, to be honest with you. But it was a great year for movies. Even Beetlejuice, which also didn't make my top 10, but it was a pretty decent movie. Like, it was a good movie for like 80s for some reason. Like, if you grew up in the 80s, like, there was a lot of good movies. But anyway, I've been rambling on too long, guys. That's my top 10 list of 2024. If there's any movies that I left off my list, then, I mean, I might not have seen them, but you can leave your comments in the comment box below. Say, Rob, you need to see this movie, and if I haven't seen it, I will look into it and get around to it. Maybe. But that is my list. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, as always, I'm Robert Storms, and that's my opinion.